from PRX.
Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the podcaster who's here to read you or read you and reinterpret a story, which doesn't happen too often on this podcast. We did it over the holidays in 2023, and for Subscriber Summer, we've been doing it, and this is a little piece of bonus content we're putting out, because it's actually a full episode. I'm going to record a whole intro for it. And we're reading that famous book that Mary Shelley's, the book Mary Shelley wrote, that was cycled through my imagination and became that tale of Frankie and Victor. We're going to read the kind of the preamble or a couple letters at the start of that book. And it's going to be sleepy. It's going to be snoozy, be a little bit silly, all to keep you company and take your mind off of stuff so you could fall asleep. That's what Sleep With Me exists for. It's the goal around the show, is to distract you, give you something to listen to, and then suddenly you find yourself falling asleep or waking up the next day. So this show isn't about trying to fall asleep or giving you a method. It's just giving you a friend or a mild distraction or something out there to listen to barely pay attention to, but kind of pay attention to. So if you're new, I'm glad you're here. I work really hard on the show. I yearn and I strive. I really want to help you fall asleep. And the structure of the show, if you're new, is we got this greeting, then we got support, so paying for the podcast is optional. Then a long, meandering intro to ease you into bedtime, and then be our episode 2. There'll be a couple of the letters that set up the premise of the story, or kind of the character. I don't know. It's interesting, and oh boy, is it snoozy, because it's a lot of I don't know if it's exposition or not. I think it is, because it doesn't. I don't know. It's a lot of talking though. And a lot of talk about friendship and what friendship means to different characters. So not a lot of Frankie in there. So if you say, "Oh boy, I'm not into Frankie," I said, "Don't worry. There's almost no Frankie in this part of the story. That's why I'm doing it." But if you are a super fan of this and of me reading in this fashion, we're going to do the whole novel on Sleep With Me Plus. Or if this is something you're a fan of, let me know. We can do more of it. But yeah, I'm really glad you're here. I really hope this podcast can help. If you're new, welcome. Regular listeners, so good to see you. What do you say? This show, all of Sleep With Me is made possible by listeners who support the show directly or direct response sponsors, which means they base their support of podcasts on the listeners that support them. So we're really thankful. I mean, I would not be here. All the people that work on the show, it's because of the listeners that we're able to do this for you free twice a week. So thanks so much. And here's a couple of the ways we're able to do it.
Bada, bada boom, sold.
Huh?
Just sold my car on Carvana. Dropping it off and getting paid today.
Already?
What, you still haven't sold yours? You told me about it months ago. Is the offer good?
Oh, the offer's great.
Don't have another car yet?
I could trade it in for this car I love.
Come on, what are we waiting for?
You're right.
Let's go.
Whether you're looking to sell your car right now or just whenever feels right, go to Carvana.com and sell your car the convenient way. Terms and conditions apply.
Hey, everybody, this is Scoots here, and this is a message for people. This is a message about Sleep With Me Plus, supporting the show directly. And I want you to imagine, like, all the personal services that you pay for on a regular basis, whether it's getting your hair cut, maybe you get food delivered, maybe you get your nails done, or a massage. You know, there's so many people that provide services that are valuable parts of our lives, right? And I just wonder where Sleep With Me falls in those personal services that make your life better. And if you say, yes, Sleep With Me is pretty high, and I probably get $300 worth of value out of Sleep With Me every month. I listen 5 nights a week. It helps me go to sleep so I can work, so I can be a member of my family. so I can get up on time and so I can feel good about my life. I'm just wondering, like, what would you tip on that? If Sleep With Me actually brings you $300 of value or whatever it is, would you tip Sleep With Me 5% a month? Would you tip me 20%? Because Sleep With Me is free, and the way it stays free, the way we're able to produce the show, are the people who are willing to pay for the podcast as if it was a service because they know how much work it takes, because they value the show, because it makes their life better. Please support the show. Think about how much it's worth really to you, depending how much does Sleep With Me improve your life. If it was a paid service, how much would you pay for Sleep With Me? If it has a positive impact, like the good feeling you have when your nails are done, when your hair's cut, when you get home from from going out and the babysitter's put your kids to bed and fed them, when someone delivers your food with a smile, when someone asks if your drink wants a refill, those are services that make your life better, and those are worth money to me. And if Sleep With Me service is worth money to you, the way we keep making it, the way it's going to be possible to keep making it in 2025 is you and listeners like you just taking that action, saying, holy cow, yeah, it is worth $14 a month to me. That's about a good tip for Scoots. Or yeah, I'll support it with an annual subscription of what if you support the show with an annual subscription based on what you get out of 1 month of value of Sleep With Me, you could support it for the whole year just based on 1 month's worth of value you get out of Sleep With Me. If you say, you better believe I get $245 of value out of the show every single month, that's the top tier supporting the show. It makes a gigantic difference, and it's critical to the future of Sleep With Me. Kind of the action you choose to take right now, if you're agreeing with what I'm saying, if you can afford it, and Sleep With Me is a service that is a part of your life like those other services, your action or inaction is critical to the future of Sleep With Me. Those people that'll set an alarm or go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus right now and support the show, you're supporting the show into the future, into next year. And those of you that wait, it's kind of putting it, it's like, well, I don't know. You're kind of putting the show in a, well, I don't know situation, like saying, well, I don't know about supporting the show. I'd love to have your support because I love making the show. I love having a positive impact on your life and the lives of people who can't support the podcast. There's a lot of people who are listening who just can't support the show, who love it. And that's kind of the difference between Sleep With Me and other personal services. Most of those are pay first, right? You either pay or you get the service, you either pay for the service or you don't. But with the podcast, paying for it's optional. And that's powerful. That's powerful when you support the show directly. But it's also stepping out of your comfort zone. It's doing something different. It's takes some, there's some resistance to it. And I don't just mean with you. It's a natural resistance. And particularly with a bedtime podcast, it's really hard to convince people, even when they agree with everything I've said so far, to take that action. So if you agree with it, don't wait. Say, hey, Scoots, here's a tip. You do make my life better. You do deliver my lulls with a smile. I do feel better, almost as good as when I get a really good haircut or hairdo or whatever you call it nowadays. It is like a massage. So you can do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. I'll appreciate it, and so will a bunch of other people. Thanks so much. Oh, Mystery Bard, a lot of people help out in this show. Who are they?
Chris Posty Poster Son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes. Carl W. the Legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound or on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at JonathanMann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support your scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Anna like banana. Leah does the transcript.
Thanks, Mystery Bard. If you want to be a rebel, if you believe in Sleep With Me, think about, and you can afford to support the show. sleepifiedpodcast.com/plus. Thanks, everybody. Hey, are you up all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep? Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it the bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you can set aside whatever's keeping you awake. It could be thoughts on your mind, thoughts about the past, the present, the future, thoughts you're thinking about, thoughts, that are on your mind. It could be feelings, anything coming up for you emotionally that's keeping you from being able to sleep. It could be physical sensations, changes in time, temperature, routine, travel, guests, work schedule. You could be going through something or getting over something, whatever it is, anticipating something. The only reason I list that stuff, because a lot of times, even for me, it's not even any of those things, but sometimes it's just some of them or all of them, but it's also something a little bit out of my reach of even describing in the podcast, like last night, I'm going through something, but it's also like, I don't know. It's just like, what's quite like trouble staying asleep was what was going out to me last night. So whatever it is that's keeping you awake, the only reason I list it is so you get a sense, one, that there is this community around the show, and it's a silent, snoozing, caring community, a community that's kind of at rest or chilling. I don't know how to describe it. A lot of, most communities are active, or they're like, there's an expectation, just like passive listening that we talk about in this podcast, or reflective listening. Like everybody talks about active listening, right? That's something to strive for during the day. And then there's passive listening, which I guess is during the day. We use it all the time. Sometimes you got to. You got limited resources, or you just do it because you're human. And passive listening is where you're kind of listening, but you're kind of not. You're passively listening. Or sometimes you are listening, you're just passive. I think Camus said there was nothing more to say. I can't remember what it is. One of my favorite lines that I can't remember. So there was nothing. I said nothing. There was nothing more to say, so I said nothing, or something like that. My attempts at, it's not profound wisdom. It's just like one of those things in the book that sticks out to me. But what was my point is that we're all here together, even though we're separate. We're together alone. We're alone together. What does that mean? Why do I list all the stuff that might be impacting your sleep? Why do I talk about my inability to get a solid night's rest sometimes? So you get an idea you're in the right place where I may be able to understand what your experience has been like, that I actually do care about it, because not only are you another human being who's having a tough time getting to sleep, but I'm someone that may know exactly how you feel or relate to how it feels. And I don't know, like knowing that, making this show for a long time, every time I learn that in a new way, it makes me feel less alone, even when it's not something that is like a one-to-one thing. And that there's other people out there who have experienced something similar or close to what's keeping you awake, and they care too. I've heard from them. And they really are holding a place for you if you're new for this podcast, or even if you're a regular listener and you got something new going on with your sleep, or you're like, I still don't believe any of this stuff Scoots talks about. That's fine too. There's still people holding a space for you, being like, I'm really glad you're here, just like Scoot says. And I really do hope this podcast can help you fall asleep like it has for me. And I even hope one day you get the joy of holding the space for another new listener like I am right now, and be able to feel them out there, even though, it's beyond whatever sense that they're out there somewhere, maybe in the future, maybe even in the past. And you can connect with them in a soft way and say, hey, this is one of these communities. It's a nonlinear community. I don't even know what that means, but that's pretty much what the show is. So I'm glad you're here. I guess that's why I list that stuff. Also, you deserve a good night's sleep. You deserve a place you can rest. You deserve some respite. You deserve to not have any rigmarole around bedtime. A bedtime you could look forward to or at least feel neutral about. And those are reasons I make the show. I send my voice across the deep, dark night. I use lulling, soothing, creaky dulcet tones and pointless meanders and superfluous tangents, which means I go off topic. I get mixed up, then I loop back around. Then I forget what I was talking about. And then I'll overuse words or I fill it up with filler words. All to keep you company and take your mind off stuff and be there. Because this is a podcast, like I said, that you just barely listen to. Not even, I call it reflective listening. You could passively listen. You could barely listen. Or you could also reflectively listen, which is like letting my voice bounce off your eardrums without processing anything. Or pretending you could say, yep, Like you can, that in a normal relationship, or even in a normal community, they say, oh, no, we frown upon that. What, pretending to listen to you? You frown upon it, eh? Are you not listening to me talking about your listening? Yeah, oh, yeah, I'm listening to that frowny stuff. Oh, yeah, yeah, oh, boy, yeah. Like this podcast, it's perfectly fine. And you can, and I get these emails of people that wake up the next day. Maybe them and their partner listen, or their partner's aware that they're listening to it. So what was that podcaster talking about last night? I don't know. Something about listening. I don't know. I think he changed a new word about, I don't know if it was listing or listening or listening. I get the idea he was talking about listening, but I don't even think that's a word. Makes me think that he's talking and sailing at the same time while making a list. Or maybe he made a list on the sail of a sailboat. I don't know. But yeah, I slept great. Did you do the thing where you pretend to listen to him as you're falling asleep? Yeah, I did. Yep. Totally. Are you doing it to me now? Yeah, because we're both within his imagination, believe it or not. In his imagination, So that's kind of reflective listening or, I don't know, listening. I guess that is listening. So that's one thing that does take some getting used to, that this is a podcast you just barely listen to. Like a TV on in the other room, music on down the street, a fan that, at least it has, or calling a friend and saying, talk to me about nothing for a while. That's the passive, barely listening part. And what else do you need to know? This is a show that doesn't put you to sleep, believe it or not. It's a podcast that's here to keep you company while you fall asleep. There's no pressure to fall asleep with this show. No expectation to fall asleep. That's why the episodes are over an hour. I'm here to keep you company and take your mind off of stuff while you fall asleep, and to distract you and be your bore friend, your bore bae, your bore sib, your bore bud, your bore bee, your neighbor, your bores, your bore bestie, your best bore friend forever, your bore bruh, your friend in the deep dark night who keeps you company, who you don't listen to. I'm here to chatter for your benefit. So podcasts you don't listen to, barely pay attention to, also takes some getting used to. Most people don't ever, this show does not work for most people. But even the people it works for, it does take a couple tries to get used to because of those ideas. And you're probably skeptical. You're probably doubtful. You're probably frustrated. This show is very different. It does take some getting used to, but even that's why I have a website set up, sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. And it has other sleep podcasts and sleepy stuff on there. And, it's I don't know what else to say. It's, I'm totally off. My brain just totally went off into a lane where there's nothing to talk about. So wasn't I in the middle of presenting the show? Oh, so just give it a few tries and see how it goes. Because yeah, maybe you came here, this is a sleep podcast. We've been making it about 11 years. But it's very different than, what you'd expect a sleep podcast to be, understandably. And I'm more of a goo than a guru, or a roo, sweet pickles, than like a guru. But if you listen a few times and you realize, I don't think this is a podcast for me, check out sleepwithmepodcast.com/no thank you. The structure of the show can also throw people off, and this show is structured in a very specific way. But you can adjust it if you listen a few times and you say, okay, I think I want to make this adjustment. But I'll tell you why it's structured the way it is. This is the version most people listen to. And they do listen to it linearly. Some people with a sleep timer to this sponsor-supported version of the show. And it starts off with the greeting, friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. And then I say something silly, so you feel seen and welcomed in, and you say, okay, I might check that podcast out. Then there's support, so paying for the show is optional. And that's what most people prefer. And then, so if you prefer something without sponsor support, you could support the show directly. You get ad-free episodes in a bunch of different versions. Then there's an intro, which is separate from the support. It's a show within a show. And it's meant to ease you into bedtime. It's where I present the podcast to new listeners, and it takes me a while because I go off topic a bunch. But for regular listeners, it follows a familiar structure, but it's different every time. And I don't know, that creates a bit of variety and comfort. But the other thing is the intro isn't meant to put you to sleep. It does put a percentage of listeners to sleep. And there are a percentage of listeners that listen to bedtime stories from Sleep With Me or story-only episodes on Sleep With Me Plus. But for most people, the intro is part of their wind down. They may be in bed getting comfortable. They may be getting ready for bed. Or they might be doing some chill activity. And the intro eases you into bedtime. It gives you a buffer between the wake time and the sleep time. Because that's what's been shown to work for most people, and for me, most of the time, is having a wind-down routine. So the intro is where a familiar friend kind of takes you, says, okay, I'm going to talk to you in a similar way, but about different stuff today. And while you get ready for bed and get comfortable and stuff, and then we'll have a bedtime story. So yeah, then there's support, and then there'll be our bedtime story. And that's how the show goes and why I make it. And I'm so glad you're here. If you're new or coming back, like my life has been lifing, as they say, and it's never been more clear why I make this show. And that helping people get the sleep they need when they're going through things, or they just can't sleep, or they can't sleep at all, or they need a break during the day. Making it in a creative way that's lulling, but with a loving undercurrent to it, but at a distance, right? You say, well, boy, keep that, yeah. Like, and I said, don't worry, I'm good at that. Like with some caring, indirect caring, I guess, that's important to me, really important to me right now. And so I'm so glad you're here. I work really hard, so do a team of people. And I yearn and I strive, and I really hope I can help you fall asleep. Thanks again for coming by. And here's a couple of ways we're able to do this for you for free twice a week. Sleep With Me podcast is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states. All right, hey everybody, this is Scoots, and this is a new style, well, not a new style of show, but this is going to be a new style, currently a bonus content for all of you that are listening on Sleep With Me Plus. It will be this is like the prequel part. So this, and then we'll start this. But we're going to be reading through a novel. And the way I'm seeing the releases is every third release will be one of these. So I guess it'll come out to everybody as a part of subscriber summer, and then we'll continue on. I think we'll see how this goes. But, I talked about this. I got a lot of feedback of people wanting me to do this. And we did it with one Dickens story. So I'm going to be reading from the book Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. And I know some people, if you've never read the book, you might be like, whoa, Scoots. Well, one, of course, I'm going to sleepify it. But two, this is very much a travelogue. And I don't know. I like when I read it, when I was writing stuff, I read the book, I was struck by, well, one, a lot of high school students read it now, and they kind of have the same, very similar reaction to what I had to the book of surprise and of like opinions about Victor, we'll say. But also, I was just blown away by the travel details of the book and some really beautiful moments and some moments that inspired some episodes of Sleep With Me, like where your heart's going. And just how different it was from how I've seen it portrayed. I mean, I never read it before. And, we'll just see how it goes. I can't guarantee, with like our schedule and everything, how long this will take or if we'll be able to continue it. But we'll definitely do it through the summer because this year, based on kind of the way things have been going over the past couple of years with the show and stuff is like... We're doing more summer releases, and we'll see what the podcast can sustain long term. But this kind of means more experimental bonus content like this. Not that this couldn't be a one-day Sleep With Me episode. Maybe you're listening to it as a Sleep With Me episode. And thanks to people at Sleep With Me Plus said, hey, like Scoots, we want to support you so you could try stuff like this out. Also, I'm not sure how long these episodes will be because... I've never done it before, but so I'm going to read through one or two, so I'm going to start the book out. It starts out with 3 letters. I'm not sure what letter, I have no idea how long it'll take, so we'll go from there. But without further ado, this is Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and we're starting at the beginning with letter 1. To Miss Saville, England, St. Petersburg, December 11th, 17 blankety blank. You will rejoice to hear that nothing surprising has accompanied the commencement of an enterprise, which you have regarded, thinking, oh boy, there you go again. I arrived here yesterday, and my first task is to assure you, my dear sister, that all is well and I have increasing confidence in the success of my undertaking. I'm already far north of London, and as I walk in the streets of Petersburg, I feel a cold northern breeze play upon my cheeks, which braces my nerves and fills me with delight. Do you understand this feeling? This breeze, which has traveled from regions towards which I am advancing, gives me a foretaste of those icy climes. Inspirited by this wind of promise, my daydreams become more fervent and vivid. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole is the seat of frost and desolation. It ever presents itself to my imagination as a region of beauty and delight. There, Margaret, the sun is forever visible, its broad disk just skirting the horizon and diffusing a perpetual splendor. There, for with your leave, my sister, I will put some trust in the preceding navigators. There, snow and frost are banished, and sailing over a calm sea, we may be wafted to a land surpassing in wonder and in beauty every region hitherto discovered on the habitable globe. Its productions and features may be without example, as the phenomenon of heavenly bodies undoubtedly are in those undiscovered solitudes. What may not be expected in a country of eternal light? I may there discover the wondrous power which attracts the needle and may regulate 1,000 celestial observations that require only this voyage to render their seeming eccentricities consistent forever. I shall satiate my ardent curiosity with the sight of a part of the world never before visited, and may tread a land never before imprinted by a foot of people. These are my enticements, and they are sufficient to conquer all fear of stuff happening, and to induce me to commence this laborious voyage with the joy a child feels when he embarks in a little boat with his holiday mates on an expedition of discovery up a river. But supposing all these conjectures to be false, you cannot contest the inestimable benefit which I confer on everyone to the last generation by discovering a passage near the pole to those countries, to reach at which present so many months are requisite, or by ascertaining the secret of the magnet, which, if at all possible, can only be effected by an undertaking such as mine. These reflections have dispelled the agitation with which I begin my letter, and I feel my heart glow with the enthusiasm which elevates me to heaven, for nothing contributes so much to tranquilize the mind as a steady purpose, a point on which the soul may fix its intellectual eye. This expedition has been the favorite dream of my early years. I've read with ardor the accounts of various voyages which have been made in the prospect of arriving at the North Pacific Ocean through the seas which surround the pole. You may remember that a history of all the voyages made for the purposes of discovery composed the whole of our good Uncle Thomas's library. My education was neglected, yet I was passionately fond of reading. These volumes were my study day and night, and my familiarity with them increased that regret which I felt I had as a child on learning that my father told my uncle before he visited the big farm I could never embark on a seafaring life. These visions faded when I perused for the first time those poets whose effusions entranced my soul and lifted it to heaven. I also became a poet for 1 year and lived in the paradise of my own creation. I imagined that I also might obtain a niche in the temple where the names of Homer and Shakespeare are consecrated. You are well acquainted with my failure and how heavily I bore the disappointment. But just at that time, oh, lucky me, I inherited the fortune of my cousin, and my thoughts were turned into the channel of thy earlier bent. 6 years have passed since I resolved on my present undertaking. I can even now remember the hour which I dedicated myself to this great enterprise. I commenced my inuring, I got in shape. Then I accompanied whale fishers on several expeditions to the North Sea. I was cold, I was hungry. This is volunteering, tired, thirsty. And I worked harder than, the other sailors, that even though they didn't have a huge trust fund during the day, and devoted my nights to the study of mathematics, theories, branches of physical science, those which a naval adventurer might derive the greatest practical advantage. Twice I actually hired myself as an undermate in a Greenland whaler and acquitted myself to admiration, though, of course, they should have admired me. I must tell you that I felt a little proud when my captain offered me the second dignity in the vessel and entreated me to remain with greatest earnestness. Not bragging here at all, so valuable did he consider my services. And now, my dear Margaret, do I not deserve to accomplish some great purpose? My life might have been passed in ease and luxury, but I prefer glory to every enticement that wealth placed in my path. That's why I'm writing this letter, to put it down. Holy moly. Oh, that some encouraging voice would answer in the affirmative. Heavens, are you ringing? My courage and my resolution is firm, but my hopes fluctuate, and my spirit is also often depressed. I am about to proceed on a long and difficult voyage. It's going to demand all my and I have a lot of fortitude. It's going to demand it all. I am required not only to raise the spirits of others, so who else would, but sometimes to sustain my own when theirs are failing. Anyway, this is a most favorable period for traveling in Russia. They fly quickly over the snow in their sledges. The motion is pleasant and, in my opinion, far more agreeable than that of an English stagecoach. The cold is not excessive. If you're wrapped in of course, I've got a lot of coverage, only the best. Dress, which I have already adopted. For there is a great difference between walking the deck of a ship and remaining seated motionless for hours. And you can't move around when you're rolling in a sledge, so you're not getting exercise. I have no ambition, to slow down between St. Petersburg and Archangel. I shall depart for the latter town in a fortnight or 3 weeks. And my intention is to hire a ship there, which can easily be done by paying for the insurance of an owner, and to engage as many sailors as I think necessary, those who are accustomed to whale fishing. I do not intend to sail until the month of June. And when shall I return? Ah, dear sister, how can I answer this question? If I succeed, many, many months, perhaps years, will pass before you and I may meet. If I fail, you will see me again soon, or never, one or the other, or maybe sometime in between. Farewell for the time being, my excellent Margaret. Heaven shower down blessings on you and save me, that I may again and again testify my gratitude for all your love and kindness. Your affectionate brother, R. Walton. All right, we're going to move to letter 2 now. So this was December 17-something. Now we're March 17-something to Miss Seville, England. Archangel, I'm there. 28th of March, 17, blah, blah, blah. How slowly the time passes here, encompassed as I am by frost and snow. Yet a second step is taken towards my enterprise. I have hired a vessel and am occupied in collecting my sailors. Those who I have already engaged appear to be men on whom I could depend, and are certainly possessed of dauntless courage. But I have one want, which I have not yet been able to satisfy, and the absence of the object of which I now feel not happy about it. I have no friend, Margaret. When I'm glowing with the enthusiasm, is it my success that repulses, the enthusiasm of my success? But if I'm assailed by disappointment, no one will endeavor to sustain me in dejection. I shall commit my thoughts to paper, it is true. But that is a poor meat. How come you're the only one, Margaret? Only in letter to you form that gets it. This isn't the medium for the communication of feeling. I desire the company of a man who could sympathize with me, whose eyes would reply to mine. You may deem me romantic, my dear sister, but I bitterly feel the want of a friend. I have no one near me, gentle yet courageous, possessed of a cultivated as well as capricious mind, whose tastes are like my own, to approve or amend my plans. How would such a friend repair the faults of your poor brother? Poor in friendship, not in many other ways, courage, finances, bravery, intelligence, knowledge, superior. I mean, those I've got plenty of. I just got no friends. Your poor brother. I'm too ardent in execution. I'm just too good, too impatient of difficulties, too effective. But it is still a greater disappointment to me that I'm self-educated. Brilliant, obviously, but for the first 14 years of my life, I ran wild on a common and read nothing but our Uncle Thomas's book of. I could quote so many books of voyages. Some of them they say is I say, don't you understand this? And they say that's fiction, sir. And I say, at the time I became acquainted with the celebrated poets of our own country, the best poets, clearly. Though these sailors disagree sometimes. But was only when I ceased to be in my power to derive its most important benefits from such a conviction that I perceived the necessity of becoming acquainted with more languages than that of England. But now I'm 28 and in reality more illiterate than many schoolboys of 15. It is true, I've thought more and more. My daydreams are more extended. And another thing I'm rich in, daydreams. They're more extended, more magnificent, but they want, as the painters call it, keeping. And that's a keeping in all caps. And I greatly need a friend who would have sense enough not to despise me as romantic, and affection enough for me to endeavor to regulate my mind. Well, these are useless complaints. I shall certainly find no friend on the wide ocean, nor here an archangel among merchants and seamen. Yet some feelings, unallied to the dross of human nature, those beat even in these rugged bosoms. My lieutenant, for instance, is a man of wonderful courage and enterprise. He's madly desirous of glory, or rather, toward my phrase more characteristically, of advancement in his profession. He's an Englishman. And in the midst of, preferences, he's unsoftened by cultivation, but he retains some of the noblest endowments of humanity. I became acquainted with him on board a whale vessel. Finding that he was unemployed in this city, I easily engaged him to assist in my enterprise. There's also someone of excellent disposition and is remarkable in the ship for his gentleness and mildness for his discipline. This circumstance, added to his well-known integrity and dauntless courage, have made me very, very desirous to engage him. There's also a youth passed in solitude. Oh, no, this is my youth. When I was passing it in solitude, I spent years under your gentle and feminine fosterage, and that has so refined the groundwork of my character. I can't overcome. This isn't just I'm judgmental of their brutishness, my sister. I have a distaste for it. I never believed it necessary. When I heard of the mariner, equally noted for his kindliness of heart and his respect and obedience paid to him and the crew, I felt myself peculiarly fortunate to be able to secure his services. I heard of him first in a rather romantic manner from a lady who owes to him the happiness of her life. This, briefly, is his story. Some years ago, he loved a Russian lady of moderate fortune, having amassed a considerable sum in prize money. The father of the girl consented to the match. He saw his mistress once before the destined ceremony, but she was bathed in tears and, throwing herself at his feet, entreated him to spare her, confessing at the same time she loved another, but that he was poor and her father would never consent to the union. My generous friend reassured the suppliant, and on being informed of the name of her lover, instantly abandoned his pursuit. He had already bought a farm with his money, and on which he had designed to pass the remainder of his life, but he bestowed the whole on his rival, together with the remains of his prize money, to purchase his stock, and then solicited the young woman's father to consent her marriage with her lover. But the old man decidedly refused, thinking himself honor-bound to my friend. who, when he found her father inexorable, quitted his country, nor returned until he heard his former mistress was married according to her inclinations. What a noble fellow, you will exclaim. He is so, but he is wholly uneducated, silent and quiet. An ignorant carelessness attends him, which, while it renders his conduct more astonishing, detracts from the interest and sympathy which he would otherwise command. So I'm a judge. What can I say, my sister? Yet do not suppose, because I complain a little. I mean, he just doesn't qualify as one of my friends. That's what I'm saying here. I think that's what I'm saying. That's because I can conceive a consolation for my toils, which I may never know, that I am wavering in my resolutions. Those are as fixed as fate, and my voyage is only now delayed until the weather shall permit my embarkation. The winter has been dreadfully severe, but the spring promises well, and it is considered as a remarkable early season, so that I perhaps may sail sooner than I expected. I shall do nothing rashly. You know me sufficiently to confide in my prudence and my considerateness wherever the safety of others is committed to my care. I cannot describe to you my sensations on the near prospect of my undertaking. It is impossible to communicate to you a conception of trembling sensation, of half pleasurable, half fearful, with which I am preparing to depart. I am going to unexplored regions, to the land of mist and snow, but I won't stare at any albatrosses. Therefore, do not be alarmed that I should come back to you as worn and woeful as the ancient mariner. You will smile at my illusion. Witty, huh? Even though I was informally educated, I should point that out. I will disclose a secret. I have often attributed my attachment to my passionate enthusiasm for the mysteries of the ocean to that production of the most imaginative of modern poets. There's something at work in my soul which I do not understand. I am practically industrious, painstaking, a worksman. I execute with perseverance and labor. But besides, there is a love for the marvelous, a belief in the marvelous, and intertwined with all this should be on my friendship profile, my dating profile, intertwined with all my projects, which hurries me out of the common pathways of other people, even to the wild sea and unvisited regions I'm about to explore. But to return to dearer considerations, shall I meet you again after having traversed the immense seas and returned by the most southern cape of Africa or America? I dare not expect such success. Yet I cannot continue to bear to look over the reverse of the picture. Continue, for the present, to write me at every opportunity. Every opportunity. You are my only friend, my sister. I mean, I may receive or may not receive your letters on some occasions, when I need, but I'm going to need them for me to support my spirits. Also, I love you tenderly, very tenderly, but you must remember me with affection, just in case. Your affectionate brother, Robert Walton. And now here we are, letter 3 to Miss Seville, July 7th, 17 blankety blank. My dear sister, I write a few lines in haste to say that I'm well and well advanced on my voyage. This letter will reach England on a merchant ship now on its homeward voyage from Archangel. And they are much more fortunate than I, though not richer than I in spirit and wealth, obviously. But I am not going to be back to England, perhaps for many years. I am, however, in good spirits. My men are bold and apparently firm of purpose, nor do the floating sheets of ice that continually pass us, indicating, where we're headed, up north. That's where we're advancing. That doesn't dismay them. We have already reached a very high latitude, but it is the height of summer, And although not so warm as in England, the southern gales which blow us speedily towards those shores which I so ardently desire, they breathe a degree of renovating warmth which I had not expected. Nothing surprising has hitherto befallen us that would make a figure in a letter. One or two stiff, if I've had a couple stiff, there's been some stiff gales and a springing of a leak, stuff which experienced navigators scarcely remember to record. But nothing gets by me, my dear sister, and I shall be well content if nothing happens during our voyage. I don't need to show, I don't need surprises to show my courage, my ardent problem solving. Adieu, my dear Margaret. Be assured that for my own sake as well as yours, I will not rashly encounter danger. I'll be cool, persevering, and prudent. CPP, Margaret, CPP. But success shall, all caps SHALL, shall crown my endeavors. Wherefore not? Thus far I have gone, tracing a secure way over the pathless seas, the very stars themselves bearing witness and testimonies of my triumph. Why not still proceed over the untamed yet obedient element? Even the seas lay at my feet, my dear sister. What can stop the determined heart and resolved will of mine? My swelling heart. I still don't have any friends, though, sister, but you are my friend, and my swelling heart involuntarily pours itself out thus. I must finish. Heaven bless my beloved sister. My only, almost, not quite as equal. You're good at listening to my stuff, though. Letter 4, August 5th. So something strange happened, sis, and I cannot forbear recording it, although it is very probable that you will see me before these papers can come into your possession. Last Monday, that's July 31st, we were almost surrounded by ice, gathered around the ship, just a little sea room in which we floated. And, our situation called for my courage, obviously, because there was also a very thick fog. And, we're chilling in the ice, lay to, we call it, hoping some change would take place in the atmosphere, in the weather. I was telling, I was, but not, they call me the boaster behind my back. Anyway, it was about 2:00 when the mist cleared away, and we beheld, stretched out in every direction, vast and irregular plains of ice, which seemed to have no end. Sister was amazing. Some of my comrades groaned, and my own mind was watchful. I was thinking, it went on and on and on and on. But there was a strange sight that suddenly attracted our attention and diverted our solicitude from ourselves. We perceived a low carriage fixed on a sledge and drawn by dogs pass on towards the north. It was only at a distance of about a half mile, and it was a being that had the shape of a person, but gigantic stature. They sat in the sledge and guided the dogs, and we watched the rapid progress of the traveler with our telescopes until he was lost among the distant inequalities of the ice. I said, was that real? It was like a dream. This appearance excited our unqualified wonder. We were, as we believed, many hundred miles from any land, but this being seemed to denote that it was not in reality so distant as we supposed. Shut in, however, by ice, we found it impossible to follow him. Well, we saw where he went because it had our greatest attention. In about 2 hours after this occurrence, we heard the sea, and before the night, the ice broke and freed our ship. But we hung out till morning, obviously, to keep under advisement. A lot of floating around. I profited by this time by resting for a few hours. But in the morning, however, as soon as it was light, I was up and upon the deck, and I found all the sailors busy on one side of the vessel, talking to someone in the sea. It was, in fact, a sledge, like the one we had seen before, and it had drifted towards us in the night on a large fragment of ice. It was just one dog and a human, and the sailors were trying to persuade them to enter the vessel. He was not, as the other travelers seemed to be, very big. He seemed to be, I appeared on the deck, and they said, "Here's our captain. He won't leave you on the open sea." And on perceiving me, this stranger addressed me in English, but with a different accent. And he said, "Before I come on board your vessel, will you have the kindness to inform me whither you are bound?" Now, you might, are you joking, right? You may conceive my astonishment hearing such a question addressed to me in my greatness, from a man on ice with one dog and a sledge, one floating piece of ice. This guy's not going to be my friend. Clearly, he doesn't qualify. I mean, I would have supposed that my vessel would have been a resource. He would have been begging me. He would have exchanged the most precious wealth on earth he could afford. And I replied, however, in a nonchalant manner, we were on a voyage of discovery towards the Northern Pole. But upon hearing this, he appeared satisfied and consented to come on board. Gracious, gracious Margaret. If you could have got a look at this guy who had thus capitulated for his well-being, you would have been surprised. He wasn't qualified. He hadn't worked out like I had. He hadn't prepared himself. I'd never seen a man so wretched. We attempted to carry him into the cabin, and he went right to bed. And then we'd bring him back up on the deck, give him some fresh air. We gave him some brandy, wrapped him up in blankets, brought him into the kitchen by the stove, warmed him up, and slowly he recovered, had a little soup, and that restored him wonderfully. But it took 2 days that passed in this manner before he was able to speak. And I often started to think that he couldn't even understand. When he had in some measure recovered, I removed him to my own cabin and attended on him as much as my duty would permit. I never saw someone more interesting, his eyes wild, even a touch of madness there. But there are moments, if anyone performs an act of kindness towards him or does him the most trifling service, his whole countenance lights up, as it were, with a beam of benevolence and swiftness I have never seen equaled. But, he's not perfect. Don't let me, he's equally melancholy and despairing, a bit of a downer. Mr. Light, a bit of a downer. Sometimes I said, you're going to keep gnashing your teeth if you're sleeping in my cabin, even if he's just sitting there, impatient with the weight of his woes. I say, buddy, I got I got all these skills. I got everything. I got no friends except for my sister. And you're acting all woeful, all so oppressed by all your woes. So what about me? But he was my guest. So, graciousness is also a thing I have in excess. And when my guest was a little recovered, I had great trouble to, keep off all the men. I said, no, he could still be my friend. So I kept him isolated, They had 1,000 questions for him. And I couldn't allow him to be bothered by their idle curiosity. I mean, I needed somebody to listen to me, even if he wasn't going to be a friend. I had to rebuild his body and his mind and restore it, especially his listening skills. And that depended on him in repose, listening to me. But once, my lieutenant asked why he had come so far upon the ice in such a strange vehicle. And I said, oh boy, you just did it, because his countenance instantly assumed an aspect of deepest gloom. And he replied, I was chasing, I was in a tag contest with somebody, and I was it. And then the lieutenant said, did the person who were chasing, who you pursued, travel in the same fashion? Yes. Well, then I fancy we saw him. For the day before we picked you up, we saw some dogs drawing a sledge with a person on it across the ice. Now this got his attention, and he asked a multitude of questions concerning the roots, which Damon, he called him. That was who he was after, trying to catch up with. It wasn't long after that, alone with me, he said, I have doubtless excited your curiosity, as well as that of these good people, but you are too considerate to make inquiries. And I just rolled. I said, I'm not here to listen to you. I'm here to be listened to, not to listen to you. But, anyway, I'm full of grace, though. Certainly, I said to him, it would be indeed very impertinent and inhuman for me to trouble you with the acquisitiveness of mine. I think you, as a guest on my ship, should be inquiring about me. But anyway, because I'm so generous, we'll go on. Soon after this, he inquired if I thought that the breaking up of the ice, where the other dude had gone. And I replied that I could not answer the question with any degree of certainty, for the ice had not broken up until near midnight, and the traveler must have arrived at a place of safety before that time. But of this I could not judge. For this time a new spirit of life animated the frame of the stranger. He manifested the greatest eagerness to be upon the deck and to watch for the sledge again until it appeared. But I had persuaded him to remain in the cabin. I said, I don't need you talking, but you could be my listener or friend. I don't need you talking. No. Remain in the cabin. You're far too weak to sustain the rawness of the atmosphere. You don't have that like I do. And I promised that someone would watch him and give him I'll have somebody to look out for it. Somebody that's not a good listener, that's not my friend, a potential friend, though you're not doing great. And they'll give us instant notice if any new object appears in sight. Such is my journal of what relates to this strange occurrence up to the present day. The stranger has gradually improved in health, but is very silent and appears uneasy. Yet his manners are so conciliating and gentle that sailors are all interested in him, although they have very little communication with him. For my own part, I started to love him as a brother. For his constant and deep grief, he does have a sob story that fills me with sympathy and compassion. He must have been a noble creature. I see him as a lesser version of me, a noble creature in his better days. But now, even in his condition, attractive, amiable. And here we go, Margaret. I said in my letters I should find no friend on this wide ocean. Yet I have found a man who, before his spirit had been broken by misery, I should have been happy to have possessed as the brother of my heart. So this, my dear sister, is not the grass is always greener, but the grass once was greener. He could have been my friend. So I could see that in him, but in the past, he was much more. But you know what, sister, I'm not giving up yet. I shall continue my journal concerning the stranger at intervals. Should I have fresh ideas to record? August 13th, 17, whatever. My affection for my guest increases every day. He excites at once my admiration and my pity to an astonishing degree. How can I see so noble a creature in misery, not giving him the most poignant, grief? I feel that poignant grief. He's so gentle yet so wise, his mind so cultivated. When he speaks, although his words are culled with the choicest arts, yet they flow with rapidity and unparalleled eloquence. Hubba, sister. He is now much recovered. He's continually on deck, apparently watching for that sledge which preceded his own. I'm curious to learn more about this game of tag. Yet although unhappy, he is not so utterly occupied by his own misery, but he interests himself deeply in the projects of others. He has frequently conversed with me on mine, and obviously I communicated him without disguise, and he listened attentively into all the arguments in favor of my eventual success, and into every minute detail of the measures I've taken to secure it. My dreams have come true, sister. I was easily led by the sympathy which he evinced to use the language of my heart. to give utterance to the burning ardor of my soul, and to say with all the fervor that warmed me, how glad I would sacrifice my fortune, my existence, my every hope to the furtherness of my enterprise. Anybody on a ship is a small price to pay for the acquirement of knowledge, which I seek, for the dominion I should acquire and transmit over elemental foes of, human greatness. But as I spoke, at this pinnacle of my greatness, something spread a gloom over my listener's countenance. At first, I perceived that he was trying to suppress his emotion, probably jealousy. He placed his hands before his eyes, and my voice quavered and failed me as I beheld tears trickle fast from his fingers. A groan burst from his heaving breasts. I paused, and at length he spoke, and unhappy, "What are you doing, man? Have you drunk also of the intoxicating draughts? Hear me. Let me reveal my tale, and that will dash the cup from your lips." Obviously, sister, this was confusing. Such words as you may imagine strongly excited my curiosity, but the paroxysm of my grief that seized the stranger and overcame his weakened powers. After as many hours of repose and tranquil conversation, that was what I was necessarily gave to restore his composure. But now he seemed passionate, but disliking of himself, quelling his despair. And that let me down. I was vulnerable there. I conversed about myself personally. But he asked me the history of my earlier years, and, what better subject to discuss. And that tale was quickly told, and it awakened various trains of reflection. Finally, I admitted I spoke of my desire of finding a friend, of my thirst for a more intimate sympathy with a fellow mind than it had ever fallen to my lot, and expressed my conviction that a man could boast of a little happiness who did not enjoy this blessing. "I agree with you," replied the stranger. "We are unfashioned creatures, but half made up, if one wiser, better, dearer than ourselves. If such a friend ought to be, do not lend his aid to perfectionate our weak and faulty natures. I once had a friend, the most noblest of human creatures, and am entitled, therefore, to judge respecting your friendship. You have hope in the world before you. You have no cause for despair. But I lost everything, and it's not great." As he said this, his countenance became expressive of a calm, settled grief that touched to my heart. But he was silent, and presently left me hanging and went to his cabin. But even in his broken spirit as he is, no one can feel more deeply than he does the beauties of nature. Except for me, the starry sky, the sea, every sight afforded by these wonderful regions seems to have the power of elevating his soul from the earth. Such a man has a double existence: misery, overwhelmed by disappointments. Yet, when he has retired into himself, he will be like a celestial spirit that has a halo around him, within whose circle no grief or folly ventures. Will you smile at the enthusiasm I express concerning this divine wanderer? Has heaven cast a friend from the sky for me, sister? You would not if you saw him. You have been tutored and refined by brooks and books and retirement from the world, and therefore you are somewhat fastidious. But this only renders you the more fit to appreciate the extraordinary merits of this wonderful man. Sometimes I have endeavored to discover what quality it is which he possesses that elevates him so immeasurably among any other person I have ever knew, at noon or any time. I mean, I think he's absorbing something from me, obviously. I believe it to be an intuitive discernment, a quick but never failing power of judgment. He did say I would be a great friend, right? A penetration into the causes of things, greatness of people like me, unequaled for clearness and precision, and to add to this a facility of expression and a voice whose varied intonations are soul-subduing music. Could be talking about me and him. August 19th, sister. Yesterday, a stranger came to me and said, "You may equally perceive easily, Captain Walton, that I have, been through a lot of misfortune. I had determined at one time the memory of those things, I wouldn't tell anyone. But you have won me to alter my determination. You seek for knowledge and wisdom as I once did. And I ardently hope that the gratification of your wishes is not a bad surprise, but a good one, as it's been mine. Not great. I do not know that the relation of my not great travels will be useful to you. Yet, when I reflect that you are pursuing the same course, towards greatness, towards the heavens, exposing yourself, as many have, I don't want them to render to you what I am. And I may imagine that you may deduce an apt moral from my tale, one that may direct you, if you succeed in your undertaking, and console you in the time of failure. Prepare to hear of occurrences which are usually deemed marvelous. I mean, once your histories, I'm sure, won't be as marvelous as yours, he said. Were we among the tamer scenes in nature, I might think you'd look at me with unbelief, perhaps ridicule. But many things will appear possible in these wild and mysterious regions, which would provoke the laughter of those unacquainted with the ever-varied powers of nature. Nor can I doubt that my tale conveys in its series internal evidence of the truth of the events of which it is composed. Now, you could easily imagine, my sister, that I would be gratified by that offered communication. Yet I could not endure. I mean, if he had a tale of greatness, what would that mean for me? But also, I didn't want him to renew his grief with the recital of his misfortunes. I thought he was a friend to listen to me, not me to listen to him and his greatness. But I felt a great eagerness to hear the promised narrative, partly curiosity, partly a strong desire to merely ameliorate his fates. It was me listening to him is showing my greatness and kindness. And I try to put these feelings in an answer. I thank you, he replied to me, for your sympathy, but it is useless. My fate is fulfilled. I wait but for one event, and then I shall repose in peace. I understand your feeling, continued he, perceiving I wish to interrupt him, but you are mistaken, my friend. If thus you will allow me to name you, nothing can alter my destiny. Listen to my history, and you'll perceive how irrevocably it is determined. He then told me that he would commence his narrative the next day when I should be at leisure. This promise drew me from the warmest thanks. Thanks, I was going to be relaxed at leisure, but sure, I'll listen to you. I have resolved every night when I am not, imperatively occupied by my duties, obviously, to record. Obviously, through my greatness, I could be a great voice for his story. To record as nearly as possible in his own words what he related during the day. If I should be engaged, I'll try to at least make notes, paraphrase. Thus, this manuscript will doubtless afford you the greatest pleasure because it's written by me, who knows him, but you will hear it as if it's from his own lips. And, with what interest and sympathy I shall read my own words someday. Even now, as I commence my task, his full-toned voice swells in my ears. His lustrous eyes dwell on me with all their melancholy sweetness. I see his thin hand raised in animation, while the lineaments of his face are radiated by his soul within. Strange and harrowing must be his story. Frightful the storm which embraced the gallant vessel, and on its course wrecked it thus. Good night, everybody. Everybody, Scoots here. I'm tucking you in with tonight's sponsor, Helix. But I want you to picture me getting tucked in at night right now. I'm getting tucked into my Helix Dusk Luxe. It's listening to right in the other room. It's laying there, waiting for me to climb in at night. Tonight I'm going to get comfortable. I'm going to pull my covers up to my chinny chin. And yeah, I sleep on my side. I sleep on my stomach. And I love sleeping in my Helix. So comfortable. It fits the way I sleep. And I can see myself there. Oh, yeah. There you go on your side. You look so comfortable there, Scoots. And I didn't notice as I tuck you in. Good night, Scooty Poo. Talking about myself in the third person. But I've noticed in the 4+ years you've been sleeping in this Helix, your sleep is a lot better. And we look at this summer, and every time you go out of town, no matter how nice the bed is you're in, you don't get as good a sleep as in your Helix Dusk Luxe, do you? But most of all, you don't look forward to it. You don't have that reassurance. I know I'm comfortable in this mattress. I know whether I'm sleeping on my side or my stomach or I'm laying on my back, I'm going to feel the right amount of support and comfort. And the other thing is, I know if I recommend a Helix to somebody else, it's going to fit their needs because they're going to take that quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep, and they're going to get matched with a mattress based on how they like to sleep, their sleep preferences, their feel preferences. Or they could take it with their partner and find out what mattress is going to work for both of them. So don't miss out. Maybe you could picture yourself tucking yourself in not that long in the future. Look at how comfy old Scooty Poo is. Scooty Poo took that Helix quiz, got matched with the Helix Dusk, picked the Dusk Luxe. And Helix has so many different mattress models to choose from. So picture you taking that quiz, just 2 minutes, and then you can picture yourself tucked in, comfortable. I don't know, which mattress model do you get matched with? I'd love to hear about it. So take that quiz at helixsleep.com/sleep, because right now Helix is offering 20% off all mattress orders when you use our link. That's helixsleep.com/sleep. And let me know after you take the quiz. Which Helix model did you get matched with? And are you picturing yourself tucking yourself in? Oh boy, you look comfortable too. Good night, everybody.